Jody Stephens, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's exciting that people are interested, and we're certainly thrilled to be coming back to Australia.
Yeah, you're coming down in August with Those Pretty Wrongs, playing material from your Holiday Camp album as well as Big Star material. Those Pretty Wrongs is you and Luther Russell. When did you and Luther first meet?
Luther was in a band called the Freewheelers. They were signed to Geffen in the early 90s, and their A&R guy was Gary Gersh. And I would make A&R rounds for Ardent, soliciting business for the studios. And we had a production company. We were developing artists, and I was shopping artists and that sort of thing. But Gary was a Big Star fan, and he introduced me to Luther. And but Gary also introduced me to John L. and Ken Stringfellow, the Posies, and all three of these folks have been long-term relationships. Yeah, it certainly made my life a lot nicer.
Yeah.
We had just, because Alex and I continued Big Star on with John and Ken, and then joining up with Luther to play some songs at a Big Star documentary screening kind of sparked the what was to become Those Pretty Wrongs.
Yeah. Like Big Star, Those Pretty Wrongs songs sonically reference that 60s, 70s folk rock, power pop sound. Did Luther grow up listening to similar albums to you?
I think so, yes. There's a little bit of an age difference, or a bit of an age difference.
Yeah.
And but yeah, we were all inspired. I think both of us were inspired by the same kinds of music. I think Luther's scope might be broader than mine. But yeah, we're both huge Beatle fans. It's as a matter of fact, Luther appears on this podcast about the Beatles pretty frequently.
Yeah. So how did the Holiday Camp songs come together? Did you write sitting side by side, or did one bring an idea to the project?
It's it's a true collaboration, that's for sure. I can write a set of lyrics and sing them on the phone, on voice memo, and send them along to Luther, and Luther does an arrangement, creates the musical intros and what's played underneath musically, and does a brilliant job of that. Sometimes kind of rearranges the melody line a little bit, or if it needs a bridge, he'll write a bridge. Yeah, it's a pretty fantastic relationship. He sent me a set of lyrics, and I came up with a melody line for them. In part, the way we started, I was going to be the lyricist, and Luther was going to write the music, and we really kind of evolved into Luther still primarily writes the music, certainly, and I think to some extent I'm the primary lyricist and melody writer, but we both engage in both.
Yeah. You're a drummer. Did you play any other instruments?
No, I always meant to pursue that. So much for good intentions. So I just sing parts and melody lines and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The album is probably 50% pop rock songs, 50% ballads. Was that an intentional thing, or just the way it turned out?
That's just the way it turned out. Luther and I have the luxury of not having to sit across from each other to write, so there's no real pressure. As ideas come to the surface with us, we can share them with each other. So we can kind of move along. Sorry, I forgot what your question was.
Was it just the fact that it's probably 50-50 ballads and pop songs?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to support the fact that we're not sure where these ideas are going. They just kind of come to the surface and we run with it.
Yeah. The band name Those Pretty Wrongs comes from a Shakespearean sonnet. I'm wondering if the opening track, New September Song, is a reference to the Jeffrey Wright poem, September Song, or the Kurt Vale song, or the Big Star September Girl song, or any of that.
No, but that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard. I certainly I know Kurt Weill, but I don't know of his September Song
Yeah.
or September Girls. Certainly know of that one, but basically Luther sent me an idea, and he called it, just as a reference or a placeholder for it, he called, I've got this new September song, because it was the month of September, and I just took that and wound up making it a title, because I'd write a verse and melody line, and then when I got to the chorus, I was pretty excited about getting the verse done. So I sang, and this new September song is coming on. And it just because it was developing, it it's like you're writing, your ideas and the way you express yourself just kind of come up to the surface. And you don't know where these things come from.
Yeah.
They just bubble up, and you're grateful for them. And that's what, and this new September song is coming on.
Yeah. Paper Cup is probably my favorite song on the album. It sounds like it came together easy. Would that be true?
It, yeah, musically, yes, definitely. It, because it didn't really, I wanted some sort of almost like cadence or militaristic, but it's also kind of Motowny drum beat, just quarter note snare and bass drum beat marching along, because it starts off with your soft eyes and soft smile come and go in regimental style. And I just wanted to kind of set that kind of stiffness about it, because it's really about spousal verbal abuse. And, kind of why do you want to hang around that for the rest of your life, kind of thing. And it was just from, during COVID, everybody, I think, got hyper aware of why of the people around them and the conversations, and certainly the proximity of someone, because, wanting to keep 6-foot distance and all that. So it was, that's the whole idea of that regimental thing, but it came together pretty easily. And again, it's some things I'd spend a minute on, or Luther and I spend a minute on lyrically and going back and forth, but it just kind of kept coming up, and the verse, it was like, oh, okay. I think sometimes the more I put myself in the moment and try to feel what's going on, the easier lyrics come.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Thank you.
Holiday,
of course, Mitch is on Glockenspiel for that one.
Okay. Holiday Camp was recorded at Ardent Studios, where Big Star recorded, and where you work. The studio always had a bit of a family vibe to it, rather than a big studio commercial feeling. Does the studio still retain that vibe, do you think?
I do. I think John Fry set the tone for that. And I think John Fry brought in friends a lot, and folks that he just kind of connected with. Certainly Terry Manning may have been his first engineering hire. And, Terry went on to mix the Staple Singers records and mix Led Zeppelin 3 and Ardent, and a lot of pretty awesome projects, and Richard Roseborough, but they were all, and then certainly Chris Bell and Andy Hummel and Steve Ray and John Dando all kind of came into the fold, and they were all, they all went to MUS, this private boys school. And so there was that kind of bond there with all of them. But definitely, I think we have a new general manager, and He's also the person that's come up, has masterminded the new design of control rooms in the studios and kind of the whole new master plan for Ardent Studios.
Do you still have a lot of vintage gear at the studio?
We do. We, of course, Neumann mics and some processing gear, and I think we still have a couple of mono Fairchilds. And, certainly EMT plate reverbs. Those are pretty vintage, I think. And you can even call our echo chambers, our live echo chambers, vintage, because they've been at that location since '72.
Yeah. Let's talk about the gear that you used on holiday camp. I believe you used some of Chris Bell's guitars.
We did, and I meant to look it up for sure, but it's a Gibson 330 or 335. They're very similar. I think there's just one kind of mod, but used that, and used a high watt that was bought for Big Star. John Fry bought us a couple of high watt amps, one for Andy and one for Alex. And so Luther plugged into that, and it just took on a life of its own. It's like, whoa, it kind of, instruments, they really do kind of speak to you and sort of inform you about how to use them and play them. So that's fun, incorporating that Gibson, that electric Gibson, because it's on all three of our records. And then I have Chris's Yamaha acoustic guitar that he used on number one record. I own that one. We borrowed the electric Gibson from his nephew.
Yeah. You've always been a Ludwig drum player. Do you still have the original kit that you played with Big Star?
Well, yes. This kit that I have, I bought in '72. And so it's on Radio City. It's not on number one record. And I don't have, that was a Ludwig kit too. It was a smaller kit. And I no longer have that one. It just kind of disappeared. I left it at the house, and I had a younger brother that was pretty mischievous.
Yeah.
So who knows where that wound up.
So are there other drummers along the way that have inspired you?
Definitely. I mean, Ringo Starr got me into it. The Beatles got me into playing. My brother and I, Jimmy. And then certainly Al Jackson, Booker T and the MGs. When, the Stax started releasing Sam and Dave and Otis Redding and Staple Singers records, we put a soul band together. So Al Jackson, I don't know, Keith Moon, wow, what an influence. I actually saw The Who perform Tommy live in the '70s, whatever year that was. And John Bonham, I got to see Led Zeppelin at the Coliseum here in 1970. I think it was March of '70 or somewhere along there. Kind of blew my mind. Charlie Watts, definitely. A lot of B.J. Wilson from Procol Harum. I love that he played in a very orchestral kind of way.
Yeah. So are you playing drums on the Australian tour or just singing?
Just say Luther and I will play Holiday Camp, our new record, start to finish, just the two of us. Luther plays an acoustic 12-string, and we'll play a couple of other Pretty Wrong songs that way. And then we have a couple of musicians joining us, I think, bass player and drummer. And for the songs I sing, I won't play drums. But then the songs I don't sing, I'll sit in on a drum kit.
Yeah. So this show you're bringing to Australia, have you done any dates playing that material?
We did. We played the Rough Trade store in Rockefeller Center. as kind of a little album release in-store sort of thing. And then we played Union Pool in Brooklyn, the same set. But just, that's really the only locations that we played that.
Okay, so it's quite exclusive for Australian fans.
Yes, yeah. Well, and certainly bringing a couple of musicians on like this will be a first.
Yeah. Will they be Australian musicians, or are you bringing musicians out?
They'll be as Australian. Yeah, you can't. We aren't at that stage yet where we can afford a band that travels together. Yeah. We're still in the well, not in Australia, but when we go to England, we stay with friends wherever we can.
Yeah. Yeah. In regard to Big Star, is there a trust or a group that looks after all Big Star business? And as the sole survivor of the band, are you part of the process with any decisions?
Oh, from time to time, I don't, kind of in for a penny, in for a pound sort of thing. I would either need to spend a lot of time because my name's associated with the way it's handled, or I don't spend any time and just hope it all works out for the best. And I mean, Ardent's looking after it, and Ardent does a great job of it. So,
yeah. Alex Chilton has become this massive cult hero. When you think back at Alex, what are your best memories?
Oh, gee, maybe some on stage. Well, certainly a lot on stage because Alex was brilliant. And when we got back together in '93 and John Aaron Stringfellow joined us, he would do things like he'd turn around and say, okay, Duke of Earl, let's play Duke of Earl. And none of us had ever played it before. Son of a gun, man, Alex nailed it. There's this incredible falsetto part that he just completely nailed. And it worked because Alex's performance of it was so strong that, and of course, drums, that's easy to kind of fall in on. But John and Ken, I think, knew of the song a little bit, but were kind of searching. But I don't know. It's things like that Alex would do on stage, or early on, it would be the songs and the lyrics he would write were always the songs that he and Chris would write. And it was, I felt like because up until that point, I was in a cover band. But my brother and I had I think there were some originals that Jimmy had written, maybe 4 or 5, I think, that we did. And that was at a studio with a 2-track machine. So you kind of get it done live. And then we go into Ardent, and then it was all taken up to a whole nother level. And the songwriting and this, God, Ardent was just magic sonically. So yeah. Sorry, I get to remembering these things and I just forget where I'm going with them.
What about the band Golden Smog? Anything in the works, or is that project done?
Well, we played 2 dates together. April of 22, and at the God, I can't think of. Well, in Minneapolis, and it sold out 2 nights, like 1,700 tickets a night. That was pretty mind blowing. I love playing with those guys. It's like going to scout camp or something. Yeah. We're all in it for the good time, really.
Yeah. So what else have you got happening besides Those Pretty Wrongs?
Well, we do this Australian tour in August, and then we go to England in September and do, I think, 7 dates. So looking forward to that too. And then I have October off, and then I go to Spain with it's kind of a music of Big Star thing, kind of not unlike Big Star's Third that Chris Samey put together, and we came to Australia, to Sydney with. But this is just a 5-piece. It's Mike Mills and Pat Sansone and John Eller and Chris Samey and myself.
Yeah.
We'll be doing 4 dates in Spain, and I think featuring #1 record, but a lot of Radio City and maybe a song or two from Third.
Yeah.
And
So-
then other than that, it's just I'm waiting for this massive renovation project to come to completion at Ardent, and then we can, I can't wait to get back in and record.
Yeah. You've been to Australia before. What are you looking forward to most about this upcoming tour?
We don't have much time for extracurricular kind of things. But I always look forward to the performances themselves and sharing an experience with a room full of people.
Yeah. Right,
I
Jody.
think that's what we're all after, really.
Yeah. Jody, it's been great to chat, and we look forward to seeing you down here soon.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being interested.